Sort of British television. I'll tell you when. Never. That's when. We don't make anything anymore. I think it's partly down to Margaret Thatcher, which is how students of a certain era still refer to her. If you were a student during the years of Margaret Thatcher, then you really can't say her name without shouting it out. It's, partly to do with her. Thanks a lot, Mrs. T. Partly due to her that we don't make much in this country anymore, apart from financial products of excruciating complexity, so mystifying and beyond comprehension that they can sell them to dupes while telling them it's an excellent product and then taking a side bet that it would fail. That's what we do for a living. Rip people off. It's shocking, actually, but it's true. Let's have a call in Reigate. Oh, Sasha.
Hi, Nick. How you doing?
Good, thanks.
Before I start, I ought to say that I've got to say thank you for the podcast that I download every week, and I listen to it, and the hours I catch up with I missed on a Friday and Saturday. It fills my week up when I've got some boring work to do.
Oh, that's nice of you. Thanks, Sasha. Oh, I may have some... well, maybe I shouldn't say it. Maybe it's too early in the negotiations.
Oh, yeah.
But there may be some news, interesting news.
I like the sound of that.
Yeah, but that's all I can say. In fact, I've said too much.
Excellent. I was listening to the show, and the lady who was talking about the fridges earlier,
yeah,
who was talking about how, she fully accepts she's going to get a little bit poorer. And I think she voted for Brexit. I was chatting to a friend of mine about this, and we were both really worried about our jobs if we end up with a no-deal Brexit or really rubbish deal on Brexit.
Well, what do you do?
It's not a great job. I am an inventory clerk. I go to properties which are being let out, and I...
count the forks.
Yeah. I wish I don't go to that much detail. If I did, I could charge more, but I don't even go that far. So it's really basic. But I don't know.
See if the floors are all still there. That's that sort of thing.
Yeah, that sort of thing. Yeah, and it's not a great job. Yeah, I can hear you laughing on the other side there, but. It's kind of thing that I've fallen into late in life.
Yeah.
And, I'm kind of worried that, what if the market in letting or in property kind of drops, and my friend's also in a job which is to do with kind of, he works for a company that sells like organic vegetable and fruit and veg boxes. And if people's pockets are just that much more...
that'll be the first thing that go. Organic food, that'll be the first thing that go when people don't have the money to buy £150 trainers or to get Sky Sports. The food that they eat will be the first thing to get downgraded, believe me.
Totally. So we're worried about this. So what's going to happen? There's a lot of other people... So I wonder, because I know you've talked about it in the past, about how older people have voted Brexit.
Yeah.
So they've probably, about to approach retirement, or probably are retired, got their pensions all sorted out. They don't have to necessarily worry if jobs are going to go. But younger generations are worried about this. I'm not necessarily, I'm younger, but I'm in my mid-40s, but I don't want to have this situation where I have to worry about, hang on, how am I going to be able to pay the mortgage and things like that?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, there's going to be a vast number of people who will be presented with that exact same problem. Meanwhile, the oldsters that voted for Brexit will be laughing their faces off with their feet up on a full salary, final salary pension, having bought their house for £5,000 50 years ago, and they will never have had it so good. No pensioner generation will ever have it as good as the ones that exist now. And I know that it might not seem that way to those people if, in their present circumstance, but it's true. No pensioner generation will ever have it as good as the current pensioner generation.
Goodness. I mean, should they not feel a little bit of shame for what they've done?
You're funny.
I'm not joking. I think they should do, because dare I say, my next door neighbour, lovely guy,
awful,
voted Brexit, and I just kind of like older than me, close to retirement, talks about retiring, and I guess he didn't consider all these things, but
no, he doesn't care. Like the millionaires and the billionaires that funded Brexit, they don't care. It's not going to affect them.
With the likes of Rees-Mogg and even Farage as well, then.
Well, you could put names on it. I couldn't possibly comment.
Well, I've got a question for you, Nick. You don't have to answer, but I wonder if you could help me out here, because I wonder whether the likes of Rees-Mogg and Farage actually genuinely believe in Brexit, or they actually are representing a constituency.
Well, to take those names out of it, and let's talk generically, I believe that the people that are most fervent about Brexit have adopted that position for personal self-interest. I think that the end game is to make this country a tax haven, even more so than it is already, so that the people that are funding Brexit don't have to bank offshore anymore and go through the complications and the expense that is involved with that. They can keep their money in this country and still pay no tax. I think that's the end game. And but there's the tax issue, but also the regulations issue, because, as Donald Trump has taken an axe to regulations in America, which mostly are for the protection of the consumer and the people, and are a detriment to the increased profitability of international corporations. But it's the international corporations that are the ones that provide the money for political campaigns. So £1 million speaks louder than 1 million people. And that's what the end game is. I feel that they want this country to become a low regulation, low tax haven for the international criminal super rich, and that's what's happened here, in my opinion.
And the EU was going to squeeze the tax haven status of this country. I think that's what the
EU have made multiple decisions that are an impediment to the tax avoidance of multinational corporations, and at each stage our government tried to pull in the opposite direction.
Yes, but didn't this government have a veto to stop that anyway? Or does that not count? Is it only primary legislation, or is it secondary legislation? I get confused there. Could this government have not said, no, we're not going to get involved in your tax haven squeezing?
Well, they couldn't stop it. I guess I'm not sure that they would be able to have stopped the EU from acting.
They just not be part of it, then?
Yeah, but that wouldn't have stopped the EU from acting. I mean, if you're going to be doing business with the European Union, then you have to come up to certain standards, which are mostly standards for the protection of us poor dopes who pay taxes. If you really want to take our country back and give it to Amazon and Google, well, I'm raising a finger of complaint. Here's Sasha, I'm going to have to go, but thanks for that. 0345 6060 973. Matt says, what would you say to the people who gave up trying to understand the pros and cons of Brexit, because there are so many sources of conflicting information? Well, I would say that you should believe in me as the President of the United States of America would say.
Believe me, believe me, believe me, believe me, believe me, believe me, believe me. Okay?
Believe me.
This is LBC, leading Britain's conversation with Nick Abbott.
And it's a disgrace. It's frankly a real disgrace. It's a disgrace.
Well, don't sit on the fence, Donny. Tell us what you think. 0345 6060 973. What do you think, Kanye?
Whoop-dee-dee scoop poop.
Winnie says Winnie says if the snowflake moaners bothered to vote, then they could moan. Only 17% of 18 to 25-year-olds voted. But I'm not sure that's right. I think there were figures flying about immediately after the referendum about who did what, who could bother to get up and go out. And I think that the people assumed that, as usual, that the kids wouldn't, be bothered to leave the house because they were probably interfering with each other's clothing.
Disgusting.
They had more important things on their minds. But I think subsequent surveys gave them a better result than that. I think that the young voted in the same numbers as the old. But that's just... I tried to find that information just before in my detailed files, but I couldn't. So please disregard everything I've said on the matter. Northampton, hello, John.
How you doing?
Good, thanks.
I was just listening to your last caller talking about, the future of the young people, that people like me as a Brexiteer. I mean, I'm 73 years old, so I was somebody that he's talking about,
73
years old. It's a good life for me now.
Yes.
Okay. He would do well to go to Italy and Spain and Greece and talk to the young people there and see what future they've got. And they've had no referendum and they're not leaving.
No.
And many of them have flocked to this country for work.
Flocked?
Yeah, they have. They've come to this country for work over a bit. Let me just say, I was one of those people that voted in 1975 in the referendum to stay in the European Economic Community, as it was called then. But nobody told me about what was going to evolve over the next 40 years.
Well, they didn't know. Obviously.
No, I didn't know, and we don't know now. That's the thing. That's the way I look at it now. We don't know what's going to happen next, and what does happen next, we have no say in it. I can go to a general election and vote for a party based on their manifesto. Half of it's then got to be ratified by people I haven't voted for and I can't vote for, and I don't see any future than that. I mean, the biggest mistake they ever made, many of those countries in the rest of Europe, was joining the euro. We were told we were going to fall flat on our faces by all those people that said, we shouldn't be leaving now. But we didn't join the euro, and it's the best thing we ever did. But, yes, well, I don't see it. I've got young children, I've got grandchildren, and I voted to leave because I see a future out of the EU. And,
but what makes you think that our future out would be better than our future in?
Because we don't know what's going to happen.
Wait a minute, back up.
I've seen this evolve.
Hang on, wait a minute. So you think that we would be better out than in because we don't know what's going to happen? Is that right?
We don't know what's going to happen.
No, I agree with that, but it's a bizarre reason to give for the assertion that we'd be better out than in.
Well, how you tell me how it's working for Spain and Italy?
No. Answer this question. What is the idea? What is the basis of the notion that we'd be better off out than in?
Because we can rule our own country instead of being ruled by Brussels. That's the way I see it.
Well, we're not ruled by Brussels.
Yeah.
Of course. It's.
I know you were talking earlier on about
the country's come to a combined conclusion about the direction of travel, just as you've described. Our political parties do the exact same thing in the way that you described voting for a party based on their manifesto, and then there's a group of people who will decide whether they actually enact that or not. So it doesn't seem like there's much of a difference between the scenarios that you've posited.
Well, the best times was when we was in the European Economic Community. We were still able to travel all over Europe, but we weren't tied to Brussels. And I mean,
but what do you mean by what do you mean by tied?
4%.
What do you mean by tied?
Pardon?
Tied to Brussels. I mean, what is it that Brussels have said that we have to follow?
Well, one of the worst things was opening our borders. That's absolutely the worst thing that ever happened. I mean, what we do, and we're constantly putting the cart before the horse. I mean, we had over 100,000 people more come into this country last year.
Yeah, but you do know, John.
Where are these people?
John, you do know that that more people come in from outside the EU than from inside the EU.
Terrible conditions, but
listen. You do know, John. I mean, shall I repeat it, or is he's just not really listening? Is he? It's excruciating.